Tal Kadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Bava Metzia Daf Amud Aleph 105A1. The Gemara says, V'amar Rava, first line, at the end of the line. V'amar Rava, Rava comes and he says, Hayman de Kabil Iska min Chavre. If you're going to accept a business, right, from your friend, Upasid. Now, you took the business, you're going to manage it, and you lost part of the principal. So you continue working on it, right? Velo odeh. Now you didn't tell the guy anything from the beginning. Meaning, right now you have to give back the principal to the guy. Lo matziyamale, you can't say dari mehach psida b'haydai. He says, listen, right? You know, as if to say that you lost out part of the money as well. He says, Mishum damale, because he could say lahachi tarach lemalyute. He says the reason why you did that is keichad lo liklu lecha nifsede iske. Meaning the reason why. So imagine, I come and I give you a property. So you know, I give you like a money, or I give you like a business. So you know, take my company. You're an expert manager. Take it in the air. What happens is after the first month, you already lose money. The principal. So what happens? You come, you start working on it more until you get it back. Right? You cannot come to me afterwards and say, listen, your original principal is lost. Why? Because, and then basically, no, why? Because I'm going to say the reason why you worked on it is in order that people shouldn't call you the guy that loses the principal. Meaning you're doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for me. You're doing it for yourself in order to make back your name. So therefore, when you're working on it, you can't say afterwards, no, this money is now mine. I'm only giving you the original principal, but a little bit less because it got lost. No. When you were working on it, you were working on it for your good name, and therefore you have to give me back the full principal. Full principal, you have to give it back to me. Okay? So says the Gemara, Rava comes and he says, Hani betre daf de iska bada did. When you have two people that they did a partnership together, Ravach, and then right they made money off of it. So one of them comes and he tells his friend, Tal liflog, let's divide the money. If he says Narvach tfei, Tino du me'akev. Right? He could actually be me'akev to divide it. What do you mean? He comes and says, you know what, let's split. No, let's continue making money. You could stop him. And he could actually stop him from doing it in order to make more money. If he tells him, give me half of the revach, and he tells him, no, the revach is mishubad to the keren. And if he says, give me half, everything is mishubad together. Let's divide the revach. Revach is always the proceeds, the profit, right? And we're going to divide the karna. Right? And then what happens? I'll carry it with, I'll give it back to you. A mazal of two people is always better than one. Meaning, whenever you do a deal, it's always, if you have two people involved, there's always a better mazal. Because there's two people. So that means if you're going to be by yourself, it could be that right now you have mazal, and then the next day, maybe the guy doesn't have mazal. Here, if there's two people, it's always going to help out the mazal. So therefore, the guy could say, I don't want to split the money. And if you're going to tell me, let's split the keren, the principal, no. We want to continue making more money. Let's split the profit. Yeah, but the profit has to do with the principal. So, okay, I'll put it back, right? But let's just, he says, no, but the mazal is much stronger when you have two people and not one person. Okay? Fine. Says the Mishnah. Mishnah Kufei Amud Aleph, the first Mishnah. Okay, and then we're going to do the second one. First Mishnah says, imagine right now you come and you accepted a field from your friend, the chakranut. What is chakranut? Again, that you're renting, it's like a renting it out. It's not the sharecropper. Right? Remember, the next Mishnayot, it's either sharecropper or renting out like that. It's not both, not like the first ones. He didn't want to come and take out the bad weeds, right? To weed the field. And he says, what do you care? Right? Since I'm giving you the money, what do you care? And Shomilo, we don't listen to him. Why? You could say, and you're going to have, it's going to be too many weeds. Meaning, I could tell you now, I could force you right now to take away the weeds. Why? It's too much. Yeah, it's too much. Iyam says it right. He says, Elmaleh says the Gemara, Levatar hachi karivna la. After I leave, after Ksir Chitim, I'm going to come and I'm going to change everything. Elmaleh, he says, Chitam aliyata banina. I want the good chitim. If he says, Zavina lach chitim mishuka, I'm going to buy you chitim from the shuk. I want the chitim of the land. The Elmaleh min hakishin alach shiur meratef. If he says, I'm going to take off the asabim, what do you need? You're going to put a bad name to my field. Because everyone's going to come and say, right, that you did the entire field and only just part of it, and therefore it's not going to be good. So says the Gemara, we went to the Mishnah, which means the machkir or the mocher cannot come and say that. So he says, Ela mishum damal lebirza de nafal. The zraim that came into the field, they already field, and they're going to grow. And therefore he comes and he says, the charisha, which is after the katsira, is not going to help for that anymore. And therefore you first have to completely take out the weeds, even before planting. So you take out the weeds and then you plant. Okay? Next Mishnah. If you're going to accept a field from your friend, the lo asta, right? And it did not make only a little bit of tuvua. If you made enough tuvua in order to have a kri chayav l'tapel ba, you're going to be chayav to be mitapel. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda, my kitzpah bekri. What is the kitzpah in the kri? Ela, but rather im yeshba kedei nefila. If you have kedei nefila, which means right that it's going to come and it's going to get the field, right? Which means that it's going to be able to come and to sprout forth from the field. So Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita, Ham kabel sadeh mechavero velo asta. If you're going to be mekabel a field from your friend and it did not make only a little bit of tivua, if you have enough in order to make it, so you're obligated to take care of it. But that's what he writes. That's what I'm going to come and I'm going to plow, right? And I'm going to plant, right? And I'm going to reap. And I'm going to gather everything together. And I'm going to thresh. And I'm going to do zoreh, which is the winnowing. And I'm going to put the kli in front of you. You're going to come, you're going to take half. I'm going to take also half. So since we're talking about, this is again a sharecropper, so that's why it's talking about the products that you're coming and you're doing all this. Okay, so how much are we talking about according to Shtat of Yehuda? So he says, in order that you should be able to put, right, the rachat, which is basically the utensil that you use in order to take off the kernels. Okay? So Yibailuhu, they're going to ask the following question. Rachat yotze my gisa la gisa, you talk about that it goes from one direction to another, right? What's salacha? So Tashema Amar Rabbi Avu says Rabbi Avu, the din mufashim ined Rabbi Yosef Chanina, according to me, was explaining that which Rabbi Yosef Chanina, and he says kol she'en kones shelo, right? If you don't have the rachat, right, which is going to be roeh penei hachama, it has to be revealed, which means it has to be completely covered by the pile. That's considered kri shomer rachat, but only if it only is going to, meaning the pile has to be big enough that it's covering the entire shovel type of a thing. Okay, so he says Itmar, it was stated Levi says shalosh seim. The Rabbi Yanai says 2 seim satayim of tivua. Amar Shaki says Shaki satayim shamnu is except for the hotzah. Hotzah is expenses which are used, right, when you're doing this. Okay, when you're taking the products. So Tanan Hatam, we learned over there in the Mishnah. Pritzeh zetim vanavim. When we're talking about zetim vanavim, Bet Shammai comes and he says that they're going to be mikabel tuma like other types of foods. And Bet Hillel says that it's going to be tahor. Why? Because they're not fitting for eating. Okay, the Gemara is going to explain what this is. What is pritzeh zetim? So Amarav, Ravuna says rish'eh zetim. Rish'aim, which means that they're bad olives. What are bad olives? They never ripen. That's why they're called rish'aim. Yeah, you ever heard of a wicked olive? You just learned it. A wicked olive. Why? It never grows. It never ripens. It stays. So he says, Amar of Yisrael, he says, Micah, what's a pasuk? Says, Ubne paritzeh amecha yinasu lamid chazom nichshelu. Rav Nachman says, no, another pasuk. Ve'oliv ben paritz shofech dam. So basically the concept of paritz is somebody which is like I don't know, you wouldn't call it a bandit, like I don't know what, somebody that breaches, but it's something bad. I don't know how you translate there in English. Which one? The wicked? The wicked. Okay, the wicked. It's called the paritz. Okay? The kama prisezetim. So how many, right? Or is it called the prisezetim? Bilazar omer bat kavin lekora. We're talking about that if you're going to bring the zeitim in the korat haba, we're talking about, right, 4 kavs. The Rabbi Yanai says even 2 kavs to the korah. Korah is the place where they press the grapes, the olives. okay, to make the oil. But it's not a machlok between them. One of them we're talking about that they take in 1 kur of zetim in the house, and one of them we're talking about that they put in 3 kurs. So for the one that said more, obviously is the one that they put more inside of it. Okay, so it all depends on the measurement. We learned in a beraita. Alu bilan shekocho ra. If they go up in a tree, a zav goes up on a tree that is very, very chalash. It's very, very weak. Uvsocha shekocha ra. And or it went up on an anaf, right, which was tameh. Hechi dami ilan shekocho ra. What's the case? Amri dve Rabbi Yana, they said the Karabin kol she'en ikaro lachok rova. If you don't have in the roots, in order to come and to be chokek, right, shiur of revita kav. So hechi dami socho shekocha ra. If the branches are going to be hidden, right, inside of the kaf yado, meaning they could be hidden inside of your palm. So that's already, it's too small. Okay? Tzanan hatam. So says the Gemara, Tzanan hatam, we learned over there in the Mishnah. Hamalech bebeta pras. If you're going to go into beta pras, remember beta pras is a field where they had a tombstone there, meaning they had somebody buried there, and they lost it because they plowed the field and they don't know where the body is anymore, and they plowed the field, right? And he went on top of avanim she'achol lasit. So he went on top of stones, right? So he says ala adam v'ala be'ema shekuchan ra, or on top of a human being, right? Or on top of a animal. So he says tameh. He's going to be tameh. Why? Because since he doesn't know and he went on top, it could be he was on top of the kevet, so it becomes tameh. So says the Gemara, what's the case that you went on top of an adam shekuchan ra? Says you went on top of his shoulders, right? And his knees were bent. No, that's how he explains it there. Right, he's going to be impure. Next, what is the case that it's going to be impure? The Shakish comes, he says that he's riding on top of a human being, but it's causing that the knees are knocked down, no? Each other, meaning that it wasn't exactly like this, like he's not strong enough to hold it. So hechidami be'ema shekochara, yeah. Okay. So he says, if you're riding on the animal and it has to start giving out gelalim, taking excrement out. So that means that the animal's too weak to accept the person, so it's just letting out excrement. Okay? He says, to do with the shiurim of carrying the tefillah and tefillin is 4 kavs. The tefillah, what do you mean? What are we talking about now? The time we learned to the right time. If you're carrying something, and now it came tefillah, if it's going to be less than 4 kabin, just put it behind you, right? And you pray when you still have the bag, but you're praying. Arba kabin, but if it's 4 kavs, you have to put it on top of on the ground, but you can't carry it anymore. The tefillin mahi, what is the tefillin? Why? Because basically, if it's going to be so big, so it's going to bother you, so therefore you have to put it down. If it's very, very short, meaning it's very light, it's okay. You could. If it's going to be too heavy, you have to put it down. Tefillin, what is it? The time we learned in the Braita, you have tefillin. Right? If it's going to be being pushed, so it's asur. And if not, it's going to be permitted. So what are we talking about now? The 4 kabin. You're taking out fertilizer on your head. You have the tefillin there. So don't move them to the side. Why? Because that's mean have bizayon. What are you supposed to do? You put it on your. That means you're going to put it binkom the tefillin shel yad. That means the tefillin shel rosh. You're going to put it on the yad right here. Why? Because you can't. Where you're going to put it hanging? It's a bizayon. It's a disgrace. Mishum de Rabbi Shila amru. Afilu matpachat shelaim. Even the mitpachat of the tefillin, you're not allowed to put on the head that he has tefillin. Right? V'kama. Amar Rabbi afilu riva de badita. We're talking about even if it's going to be a quarter of a quarter which is mamash very, very small amount. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, "My kitzba b'kri, right? Kidesh nefila." He says, what is exactly the amount that it has to grow to be a pile? So he says, in order that it should fall. He says, what do you mean it should fall? It's for a sein for a kur. And Rabbi Yami himself says, Shmonat, it's 8 sein of tebuah for a kur. So there was an elder that said to Rav Chama, I'm going to explain to you. Do you know during the years of Rabbi Yochanan, right? It was very, very good, and the land was very, very good. But it was very, very weak, and he was like fatty and weak, right? The way of the thing. So Tzran Hatam, we learned over there. He says, "Haruach shepizra et haomarim." We're talking about the ruach, which was separated by the stalks of grain. Omdimota, we're going to evaluate kama leket ruya lasot. How much is leket is fitting to do? And he's going to give it to the anim. Rashbag says, "Notel anim kedei nefila." You're going to put a kedei nefila. How much is kedei nefila? Again, the same thing. 4 calves for a kur. So by Rabbi Yirmiyah comes and he asks the following question: lekur zera or lekur tevuah? We're talking about a kur of your planting or that which comes out, right? Lemapolet yad or mapolet shvarim. We're talking about that you're planting with your hands. You're planting it with the shores, right? Because obviously, if you're doing it with a shvarim, you have to put more zera, right, than if you're planting it by hand. Because when you do it by hand, you're more precise. When you're doing it with the shores, you have to put a bigger amount. It makes it easier for you, but you have to put a bigger amount, right, in order to get it. So Tashema, Dechiyat Ravin, Amar Ravua, Amar Ravua, Zaram Lav, Yochanan, 4 calves for the kur zera. But you still want to say, but still, is it Mapolet Yad, Mapolet Shvarim? We don't know. Take. We don't have an answer. Okay? Fine. Mishnah. The Mishnah says, if you're going to accept a field from your friend, and now the grasshoppers came and they ate it, or nishtifa, it came the ruach, and it came and dried everything up. If it's makat medina, meaning everybody in the country happened to them, you just take down the price. But if it's not makat medina, you cannot take down from the price. Rabbi Yehuda says, if you accept it with a certain amount of money, benkach, you're not going to take it down. Right? Why? Because since you already put a certain amount of money and not in the grain, so therefore the zirah was on the tevuah only, not anything else. So you have to pay the money. So says the Gemara, what does it mean makat medina? No, the majority of the fields, the majority of the valley. Ula says, he says, no, 4 different fields from the 4 different sides. Amar Ula says, they asked Marava, what happens if there was only one furrow that became dried completely with the wind? What happens now? Or it was one of them that stayed behind. That means it resisted. It actually survived. Afseka bera. Do you say that? Or for example, he says there was a pasek, meaning there was a certain part of the field that they didn't plant whatsoever. What's salacha? Or a spasta, right? A spasta is basically something which is fitting for animal food, and that didn't get ruined. What's halacha? Right? So all these questions are what are the halacha? From the top, or zera acher mai. What happens if it's going to be only for zera which is fitting for human beings, and that didn't get ruined? Or for wheat to barley, is that considered zera acher or not? Right? So all these questions we don't know. What happens if everything got destroyed with shidafon, but his was yirakon? Yirakon means it dried up. Meaning the other one was like the wind came and the wind destroyed it. Here, it just got dried. Inami, or the opposite way. The entire world got dried and his became shidafon. What's halacha? We don't have an answer in all of these questions.